Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video.
How cool is this? I bought it off of a Twitter ad. Hi, how are you? My name is Sara Dietschy, rhymes with Dietschy. This piece of art, you would say, is the coolest thing ever. It looks 3D, but it's not. So cool. Anyways, this is on my camera shelf here, and today we are talking about cameras. Every year I kind of like to do an update of like, what camera should I buy? Because I feel like that is the most asked question on Twitter, all of my social media, but also some personal camera updates for me. Maybe testing out a new-ish, not really new, a new camera to me because I'm getting rid of a camera. Can you guess what camera I am getting rid of? Maybe the A7S II. I mean, that's a really old camera, right? Some RX100s. What about the Black Magics? The GH5s. Saying goodbye forever. Okay, listen, I don't even know how to describe 2020, but I think this year, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see some cameras. Obviously, Canon has some things lined up. Are we gonna see a new GH6? Are we gonna see some cool stuff from Panasonic? I hope. I have no idea. What about Sony? We already saw the ZV-1, which was so, I love that camera. It's super cool. Are we gonna see an A7S III? Do you guys even still care about that camera? I don't know. But I know for me, the Sony a7 III, which I'm shooting on right now, has been a great camera to hold me over from the a7S II. Think about the a7S II, the GH5, when these cameras were in their prime. What a fantastic year for cameras. We were seeing cameras 4K, 30 frames per second, slow-mo. This shot 1080 at 120 frames per second. I mean, the GH5, truly ahead of its time, still insanely relevant, and the fact that you can find these at such a low price point, I'm kind of still recommending the GH5 even today. I say all this because, hey, this year might be a good year to buy a new camera that's coming out, or actually pay attention to maybe some of these older cameras that their price has dropped significantly. This video camera was so amazing for long form. It could shoot that slow-mo, it could shoot 4K, it could shoot at really high bit rates. I mean, what you can get out of this is really impressive. Yes, it is a micro 4/3 lens, so you're not gonna get, you know, crazy bokeh out of it if you're used to the full frame look, but it has a flip screen. It has amazing battery life. So once I stopped using this for YouTube stuff or some of my interview things, I still kept it as my podcasting camera because, again, this can sit on a tripod for 2 hours. The battery won't die. You don't have to get up to hit the record button after 30 minutes with that record limit. There's no record limit. Man, this has served me well. So Sarah, why are you getting rid of it? Well, fam, I am just moving on. I am consolidating. I would never call myself a minimalist, but a theme in my life right now, as you know, I've been making a lot of videos of like productivity apps and like, here's how I'm getting my life together digitally, which is true. I'm actually making an effort towards that, and I'm actually succeeding for the first time in maybe ever. And I honestly think it's because I don't have my schedule full of meetings and getting on airplanes and doing all these things that usually fill up my time. I'm actually making systems, refining them, and being pretty productive. So I'm trying to apply that and simplify my life in the physical too. And I literally have 3 or 4 different sets of systems of cameras. In the very beginning, I shot all Canon, then I switched to Sony. I've been pretty heavy Sony ever since, but hey, GH5, Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. I've always been pretty camera agnostic, but throughout the years I've actually built up a really good collection of good Sony glass. And every time I would travel and hey, I have to film a video, so I gotta bring the a7 III as well as Sony glass, but oh, I'm doing podcasts, so I gotta bring 2 of these guys. Oh, I'm doing a fancy interview thing. Oh yeah, the Blackmagics too. It's too much stuff. Too much. And once you start doing that, you have so many different types of batteries for everything everywhere. You would think this is an LPE6. It looks exactly the same. Just having so many different types of batteries. And you know what's insane about this camera? And I've complained about this before, and it's always been a problem. It's always been terrible at autofocusing. We know that. We've crossed that bridge. We've talked about it. But even when I'm doing my podcast, I will sit there and I will punch in to zoom into someone to make sure they're focused. because I always use manual focus on this guy. And for some reason, somehow, literally like 15% of the time, my video just comes out a little unfocused. Even when I sit there and I manual focus, maybe because it's, you know, the screen is so small, and with a Micro Four Thirds, there's not like that much of a difference of focus and in focus. Just focusing all around has been such a weird thing with this camera. So before I retire this GH5 officially and tell you what I'm replacing it with, can we just have a moment to honor the GH5 in all of its glory? All of the videos I've shot in the past, the ooey gooey slow-mo, all of the podcasts, That Creative Life, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All those podcasts that were shot with the GH5 and that were slightly out of focus on the GH5. All the times I tried to record selfie with it, and despite having a flip screen, still it being out of focus. The GH5, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye. Okay, well, Sarah, where are you recording your podcast on? The A7 III has a record limit. Are you using your Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras? Those don't have a record limit. Yeah, but the ProRes files are a little bit too big for me, and those don't use Sony lenses. I got a lot of Sony lenses, so. Okay, what are the cameras? What are the cameras? They're not too exciting, but these are actually my first purchases, my first foray into the Sony APS-C line. I've only shot with Sony full frame. I love Sony full frame. APS-C cameras, I was kind of like, oh, I'm done with those after the Canon 80D. But yeah, I use the Sony 6600 at Camera Camp, and it's so small and compact. Look at the size in comparison to the GH5. How much easier it is going to be to travel with these two for the podcast setup, throw them in my case, throw them in my bag, and also have the A7 III with me, no problem. No problem at all. The 6600 doesn't have a record limit, yes, and guess what? It has the newer updated batteries that are bigger. They are much better than the smaller ones, and it's the same as the A7 III. So I just went from 3 different camera systems, 3 different batteries, 3 different lens mounts to literally 1. And yes, I still have my Blackmagic for the interview stuff I do, the more corporate stuff I do, where I'm for the most part behind the camera and I can have a lot of control with that. I do not recommend Blackmagic cameras as YouTube cameras, because guess what? They don't have autofocus, and that would just, like, you need autofocus when you're filming yourself. You just do. So this is the most recent APS-C Sony camera. It's nothing super crazy revolutionary. I bet they're gonna have, you know, another APS-C camera, like probably coming out soon. They make these a lot. But the other thing is it also has a screen that you can see on the other side. So when I'm recording podcasts, I can just peep over, okay, cool, it's still recording, it's still going. So honestly, this is like the ideal thing, because also let me show you all of the lenses that I have for Sony cameras. It's like a lot, and you'll see a reoccurring theme of I enjoy very wide lenses. So the Sony 16 to 35 f4, 35 2.8, I just love this, it's so tiny. The Tamron 17 to 28 f2.8 that actually replaced my 16 to 35 because I dropped it 3 times and the autofocus is kind of janky. This is another 35mm, I know, crazy, but it's a 1.4. It looks so gooey ooey and beautiful. The 70 to 200 f4 because hey, yo girl used to do event videography all the time and it still really comes in handy for stuff like that. And then the lens I'm shooting on right now is my favorite lens by far, the Sony 24 to 70 f2.8. The videos that I was cranking out before everything happened this year, some of those you were like, oh, that shot looks really good. What lens are you using? What are you doing here? And I promise you, it's probably always a 24 to 70. It's so amazing to have that f2.8 consistently through. And when I just put a lav on, place the camera a little far away from me, zoom all the way in around 50 or so, you really get that depth in the background and the bokeh. It just looks so good. So this is my favorite lens. Okay, so also, you know that I've been shooting some stuff with Leica. I'm a big fan of Leica. I specifically love the Leica Q2, just a gorgeous camera. It's a fixed lens system. It's just so fun to shoot with. Having those 47 megapixels in that small compact size and just the beautiful Leica lens, it's a experience, but it's a $5,000 camera. And listen, if I'm gonna be honest, something's gonna happen and I'm just gonna buy it, you know? I love documenting life with that. It just makes you wanna shoot. However, when I purchased this 6600 and I knew I had this tiny 35mm f2.8 lens, now it's not the 1.7 on the Q2, I was like, you know what? Look how small, compact, and cute this is. Super fun to just like carry around with you, whip out. You could even kind of shoot yourself sometimes. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, maybe this will be fun. Maybe this will hold me over, right? Maybe. Instead of using my phone, let's bring this around. These are gonna be great practically for my podcast. I already have a plethora, is that how you say that? I don't know. Of lenses to use with it, and hey, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited about this. So enough of my camera updates. What about you guys? You ask all the time about cameras, so this last half of the video is going to be all about you. I'm gonna pour out all of my knowledge of cameras, help inform your next purchase, and again, you can always comment down below and hopefully the community will come together, help you out, because hey, if you're spending $500 to $3,000, you want to make that right decision. So let's chat just briefly before I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Squarespace is the perfect all-in-one platform to build your website, whether it's a store or an online portfolio to show off your work. They even have these cool things called audio blocks where you can add audio from a podcast to maybe spice up a blog post about an episode, or even build a podcast website from scratch. So speaking of turnkey solutions, all of this is great because you can build and edit a Squarespace website super quick. I kid you not, I just got an email from someone saying that, hey, there's a problem with your website. Hey, editor Sarah, are you listening to me? Can you please update that?
No problem.
See, literally so quick. Thanks, Jacob. So if you need any of these amazing tools that Squarespace has to offer, like email campaigns, scheduling, and claiming a custom URL like saradietschy.com, go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to build your own website, go to squarespace.com/saradietschy for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. Okay, back to the video.
You take my opinion seriously, so I hope I can do it justice. I got 56 questions on Twitter to this tweet. I hope the GH5 Panasonic lines get a good shout out. Hey, well, we've talked about them a lot recently. They just had a really cute camera come out, the G100, which looks so fun and cool. It's a little bit lacking on the specs, but Panasonic really does deliver for that micro four thirds market. And if you're new to cameras, when I say micro four thirds or APS-C or full frame, those are three types of sensors that are in cameras. So micro four thirds, that's a smaller sensor, APS-C comes next, and then the full frame sensor is going to be the biggest sensor that you're going to find in these consumer and prosumer cameras. I've always been a huge fan of the bigger sensors because, hey, you get more bokeh, just the look of full frame I love. Raymond asks, a camera with dual SD cards, great stabilization, 4K recording, pretty sure a A7 III, what I'm shooting with right now, would do the trick, but not sure if there's anything on the market at a sub 2K price point. And look, you guys in the Peachy Fam are already coming in strong and answering these questions for me. Kyle says, what about the Fuji X-T4? Fujifilm makes amazing cameras that look great. They're small and compact, easy to bring around. I don't see their cameras as like insanely diverse. For example, the Sony A7 III, I shoot my YouTube videos on it. I shoot personal stuff. I've shot weddings in the past with the A7S II, and also I've shot corporate stuff with it. The ports, the way it looks, the glass selection, everything points to being a very diverse camera. The X-T4, I don't know if I could use it for all of that stuff. However, I will say the colors that you get from Fujifilm are unlike anything else, and that's what they're known for. Shooting with the X-T3 in the past, I haven't had that kind of feeling until I shot with a Leica Q2. It really gives you kind of a similar feeling shooting film, getting a great image straight out of camera, and just being downright fun to shoot with, and it looks great too. And what I mentioned before about like diversity and how you can use these cameras, what I mean is also the E-mount on a Sony camera. These lenses are so great, and I could use them with Sony's cinema line, or if I had Canon glass, I could adapt the Canon glass onto the Sony E-mount. It's just super, you can do a lot with it. There's a really great used market for the lenses, and with Fujifilm, that's just a little bit harder to do. Michael says, did you hear about the Sony Tough cards that got recalled? So I had no idea about that, but it explains a lot, because I only shot with my Sony Tough card maybe 3 or 4 times before it just completely corrupted and I lost an entire project. So yeah, maybe don't use those SD cards yet. And I'm seeing a lot of questions about using cameras as webcams and all these things. Both Sony and Canon, hopefully in the next few months, are releasing utilities that you can install on your computer to use your Sony or Canon camera as a webcam when doing video conferencing calls just via a USB connector. So that's going to be so much easier for the average Joe just to plug in a camera to the computer and be able to access that. Still to this day, when this video is out, you have to use something like the Elgato Cam Link. You plug in your camera to this via HDMI, so you basically go HDMI to the mini HDMI, and then you plug the USB into your computer, and that's how your computer recognizes a camera via Zoom or these different video conferencing calls. So it's a little bit complicated right now. You still need this, and I will be testing that software once Sony releases it. I'm really excited about that. That's going to just like, I love it. If you just need something quick that kind of checks all of the marks and you don't care about fancy lenses, you want a fixed lens system, the new Sony ZV-1 is just such a fantastic camera. Okay, this is such a great question. Is it still worth investing in a DSLR camera, the time to learn and cost, if you just have an iPhone in 2020? If so, what DSLR camera is worth buying that will take your quality to the next level from an iPhone 11? Thanks, Sarah. Okay, such a great question. People ask about this all the time. This is why camera sales have just plummeted. This is great for most people. And I'm gonna be honest, this camera could be more than enough for a lot of you guys out there if you maybe just invest in some lighting when shooting inside. I mean, this could literally be your YouTube camera if you just figured out audio and lighting. So the DSLR market, no, I would not buy a Canon 90D, 80D, 70D during this time. It is all about mirrorless. It is going towards mirrorless. Sony has been mirrorless for so long. Canon is just now catching up with the EOS R and their upcoming cameras. So this is totally dependent on, is video an aspect of your career? If it is strictly a hobby and you're looking to see if, hey, maybe it could turn into more, I totally understand purchasing a camera to make you feel like you're invested, to make you go out and shoot, to take more pictures, to take more video of your kids. I totally understand that. What I would recommend is to not get something too big, because a lot of times what people end up with is like huge Canon 5D setup with a monster Canon lens, and it's just so big and heavy that, oh, like when you're on vacation somewhere and you want really good pictures, but you're just like, oh, I don't want to carry that camera. You don't want to be put in that position, because that's why a lot of times you end up with just iPhone pictures. So get something that's a little bit on the smaller size that you know you're going to carry with you all the time. Like even the Sony a7 III, my big Sony lenses, that's too big sometimes. So that's why I'm excited about the 6600 with the fat kind of pancake lens. It's still such an amazing setup that's going to result in amazing images, but I know that I'm going to carry it around with me. And that's kind of the case of me legitimizing a Leica Q2 is for the same reason too. So I'll pick up more of these questions in future That Creative Life episodes. That's my podcast. So make sure you're subscribed to my podcast. I usually have a Q&A at the end of all of my interviews. So I'll start trickling these in because, hey, I know that's a big question. You don't want to waste your money, but ultimately if a camera is going to benefit your life and that you're documenting it and you're going to have these amazing memories to look back on, or you can earn that money back by doing jobs like weddings or photo shoots, people getting married, hey, my engagement pictures, stuff like that. You can easily pay it off by doing little $100, 200 shoots here and there. And then just level up from there, because cameras are a journey when you're doing it professionally. You start off with the bare minimum. You invest in a camera lens system that you know is gonna be good for the next 5 to 10 years. So I hope this was helpful. If you ever need to build a website for your photography, videography, the creative things that you do, use my Squarespace link, squarespace.com/saradietschy, and you get that 10% off. Yeah, I hope this video was helpful for you. Until next time, stay peachy. Okay, bye.